All right. Welcome, everybody, to what is the first, as long as I don't screw this up, published episode of what I'm referring to right now as No Ordinary Conversation. Um, and the purpose of this really is it's a selfish endeavor in many ways because it's an opportunity for me to talk to people that I've always really wanted to talk about or talk to about broader, about their life much more broadly, from birth to wherever they may be now. Many times, I was just talking to Dr. Ray Letteer here. Many times, I know many people on active duty, and I know them very well, but I don't really. I know them in the context of wherever it is that I served with them or worked with them. I don't really know them as well as I should. One human being should know another human being. So this is my opportunity to get to talk to people. And secondly, it's I think everybody deserves a chance to um, kind of frame their life story in the way that they would like it to be remembered. Um, who knows who will watch this thing? To be quite honest with you, it's probably not all that exciting to a bunch of different people. But the truth is if in 20 years, maybe your granddaughter or your great granddaughter was to reach out and say, "Hey, I stumbled across this recording on YouTube, and it was just an amazing conversation, and I heard stories I'd never heard about my grandfather." That would be super cool. So we'll see where this goes. But first episode is with Dr. Ray Letteer. We were just talking, I've known Ray for 22, 23 years now. I think about 2001 in the Marine
hmm
Corps when he was at that time, what we call the Designating and Approving Authority, if I remember right.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Ray's had a very, very long and very successful career in many organizations, and we'll get through that. But I guess I really just kind of want to start at the beginning, Ray. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Thank you. And first off, I want to thank you so much for the distinct honor that you've extended to me to let me be your first on this.
So
I
you're
know
my
I
test
do appreciate this. I mean, of all the people you could have selected and such, to give me this honor is truly humbling. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Um, I I'm a Washingtonian. I was born in Washington State.
Really?
Our motto is that we don't tan, we rust, because of all the rain. I was born in Olympia, raised in Centralia,
Okay.
Washington. I was there all my career, all my life. It was grade school, high school, the whole bit. I even did 2 years of community college there at a place called Centralia. Now Centralia College, but at the time Centralia Community College, and I was focused on political science. I was, psychology, drama. I did a lot of acting there for a little bit. I did that a little bit in high school too. That's where I uh, lived until I decided to join the military one day. Um,
Did you go to public school, private school, Catholic school,
a
Christian?
little bit of both. When I was younger, did public school. Sadly, my parents were divorced when I was in second grade, and so to put me in a school where my mother thought to have give me a little bit more discipline, she enrolled me in a Catholic school. I'm
Okay.
not Catholic, but she figured a little bit more of the discipline and the structure would be something I needed since I didn't at the time have a father figure. Okay, fine. I did 1 year, fifth grade, and then I said, "That's it. I'm not doing that anymore." My mother married a wonderful man, and whose name I took upon myself, Letteer. And the rest of the time was again public school. And at the time, I'm of age where we actually had a junior high school.
Mhm.
So from seventh and eighth grade, and then I attended my high school, starting at the ninth grade up to graduation. I graduated when I was actually a little earlier because I was born in October, and so I started school really early. Kindergarten at 5. So I graduated high school when I was 17, which
Okay.
it's kind of an anomaly, at least at the
Um,
time. Not now.
were you a good student? Was there anything particular about school, or was it just something to get through?
Oh, yeah, kind of a little bit of both. I think I found that now I'm kind of an ADHD type of person. I
Hmm.
would get easily distracted. I could do really well in school at, you know, in coordination with the teachers and live, but I really didn't really want to do a lot of homework.
No.
So that
Holy
that
stuff.
difficulty was that by the time I mean I graduated at about the middle part of the class, you know, nothing to be ashamed about. I then went into community college, which was kind of expected. Then it was a community college in my hometown of Centralia, and I just started taking the basic classes, the English. I took, logic. You know, I was taught by a Lutheran minister who was a professor in in Latin and in logic. So I mean, I'm having this opportunity to get educated, and it was kind of neat. I did 2 years there. I met my first wife there, and she was a music major, and I couldn't carry a tune to save my life, but I did take choir just so I could get around to be with her a little bit.
Right.
So, but we wanted to get married, and there was not much in the town, not a lot of job opportunities. So I said, well, might as well join the military. Vietnam was starting to wind down. I had
Okay.
some of my classmates that were drafted and pulled into there, but it's starting to wind down. So I went in to talk to the recruiters up in Olympia. And I walk in and I'm looking around. I kind of figured I was an intel guy. I wanted to do intel. I was curious as all heck. I was fascinated by the intelligence and what they said people were doing. So I was kind of stuck on that. And I walk in and there is a buddy of mine from high school who is a Marine sergeant doing his
Hmm.
B billet tour as a recruiter. And he's
Really?
going, oh, Ray, Barney, we're, how you doing? And he's, oh, 2 years of school. Tell you what, why don't we get you into OCS and get you enlisted? And you can finish in and you can
Yeah.
get a
Sign you up.
commission. I'm going, well, okay. Can you guarantee me intel? He goes, nah, man, we can't. There's this 3-level thing. And
Yep.
the Air Force recruiter, I kid you not, looked around the door and said, I can. And so I enlisted with the Air Force and I did a 6-year enlistment because I thought 4 years might be too short and 8 years might be too long. So I did a 6-year time, and I was a communications analyst, which meant I would take intel and do the analysis, reports, and such, and provide finished intel. Um, my first duty assignment was at NSA, and had claim to fame there as there was an Korean airline shoot down that happened over the northern part of Russia, not the one over the Pacific. And I was the one that warned them that, hey, this indication is it's an enemy aircraft. Oh no, no, it's too deep. It can't be. It's got to be a test. Because working with collecting Russian radio broadcasts, right? And you kind of listen to the codes, and no, this is an enemy. No, 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 it can't be, can't be. So this Master Sergeant England shut me down,
Hmm.
and sure enough, next day, Washington Post, Korean Airlines shot down over Russia. I had people saying, "You get the report, you're going to meet the Deputy Dernza," and here I am, a little two-striper, kind of going,
That's
"Here
not
you
good.
go." That was my exposure to it all. So,
Damn.
ramble, ramble,
Um, I want to pull back to your family real quick. Do you come from a
please.
large family or?
Good, good, good. Actually, my first my birth father's last name was Rodewald, a good, strong German name. And with that, I am the oldest. I had a sister and two brothers.
Okay.
After sadly their divorce happened, like I said, in when I was in the fourth grade is when it kind of went through. Um, by the time my mother remarried at the end of the fifth grade, great man. His name is Letteer, Douglas Letteer. He's still alive. Um, and he became our father. And with that, had two. He had another son, Douglas, named after him, and I had twins, Barb and George. So I come from a family of 7 kids, where I'm kind of the oldest. All of my siblings are still with us. My mother sadly is not. She passed away in 2013.
Hmm.
But my dad's still around, living up in Washington State still. I had a chance. I did my 50th high school reunion in 2022.
Really?
So went back there to see everybody and see my friends and see my dad and they're hanging in on there. But that was my family life.
Okay. Um, growing up outside of school? What did you do?
A lot of things is just kind of yeah, doing a lot of work because my dad, I'll call the dad my current dad. He was one. You have to do work. You got to kind of pull your own. You got to do chores. My mother's mother and her husband would come by every once in a while and drop off gifts for us. Like one time they brought two horses and a cow. Huh?
Odd.
Well, we found these at a real great price, and so next thing you know, we had to find a place to host them. So I ended up taking care of them, cleaning out a barn. In fact, one summer for my 16th birthday, your time, and he said, "You're not. You got to repair the barn." Dad, no, you got to repair the barn. How do I do it? Take a look at the nails, take a look at the boards, replace the ones, and you fix it. So that summer, all I did was in the morning I go there, I'd straighten out nails, and I pull and I rebuilt that barn.
Hmm.
Now the benefit out of it was obviously, I was like wanted to help, paddle with my friends, but I had got some great arms out of the whole thing. Out of it. I came back, I looked pretty strong. But that was kind of what I did growing up. But I did get an interest in martial arts when I was younger,
Okay.
um, getting a little pushback from a couple of the bullies. I wanted to learn what can I do to protect myself, and so I started looking at some things. There was a couple of smaller classes in Central I started taking, and until I started taking formally judo in college, and so I started on the transition to judo then. So.
Okay. It, was there something specific with your early teens, mid teens that you wanted to do in life? I mean, you were politically interested. You were interested in politics and things of that nature.
Mhm,
Did
mhm.
you always see yourself going the military route, or
Actually,
was there something
actually, I
else?
didn't. It's because that was you think about it. This is the '60s and '70s, and
Yeah,
people
it's
are
not a
taking a
great
look
time.
at a weird time as we're trying to shift. And of course, people's opinion of the Vietnam War. Mine was honestly, my opinion in Vietnam was okay. If we're trying to protect them, let's go protect them. Stop dilly
Make
dallying
a,
around. Stop
make
arguing
a
about
decision,
things.
do it right.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to do it right. So to say, oh, well, no, we can't fly over this area or we can't go into here. Wait, hold it. If we're fighting, shouldn't we go into enemy territory? I mean, here, I'm thinking this at 14, 15 and
Yeah.
listening to the news. So that's where I kind of got into the aspect of what could I do to know about how to protect things. Because I figured if the intelligence wasn't good, if the intelligence was clear, maybe leaders would be able to say, "Oh, I could go do something." Didn't understand the environment, but that's kind of how I want to win. I didn't even think about military, like I said, until I was wrapping up in college, and I was looking around. I didn't see anything for me to get into, and it was a there was a hydroelectric plant. There was an open mine area. There's a lot of forestry at the time, working warehouser. I mean, things that okay, just didn't really do it for me. I did have a job where I was this family, a good friend of mine. They owned the two motion picture theaters in Centralia, Chehalis, the two towns that were
Okay.
together. So I would take in. I was first the usher um, for it, and then then eventually I became the manager for both of them. And so
Really?
I would manage the theaters and manage the staff and um, do the weekends at one and do the weekdays at the other, and then go to college during the day. And sometimes in the evening during the week, I was also a night watchman at the college. So I was kind of doing that. And then I got into student politics. I was elected as the student body vice president, then later the president, which means that the college paid for my books or my classes,
Okay.
but I'd have to pay for the books, so it was kind of the trade-off that way. So I just did what I could to help with that, set up social events, but I hadn't really thought of military until I wanted to get married, and I started looking at things that a lot of my friends had done in the military and the sacrifices they had done, the work they had done, and the military at that time, contrary to some of the peacenik kind of constructs, and please, I'm just using this from the time, okay?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
hippie peacenik construct, well, military is bad. I didn't see that. I saw a lot of young men and women that I knew were there that were sacrificing themselves to try to help others, and that's kind of, well, maybe I could do that then, and that's why I decided to go that route.
I
So,
think. I think it's easy to look back at history and think that, um, people. It's easy to generalize and say people had this view of the American military at that time, but I think a lot, as much now as it probably did then, depends on where you live.
True, true,
If
true.
you're living in somewhat rural Washington State or
Yeah.
Nevada or Wyoming, then your perspective is going to be completely different from that from somebody in Chicago or Atlanta or
No,
whatever.
you're right. You're spot on. I think you're absolutely
Um,
right on that. Yeah.
and we'll talk a little bit more about your education as we kind of progress the timeline. But I'm
Sure.
curious because I mean, you are a doctor, so obviously you
Hmm.
put in some more time in the school. Um, do you do you approach that from a utilitarian perspective, like I need to get this bachelor's to get this, and then I needed this to accomplish my next goal, or is it about the pursuit of learning, or is it some combination thereof?
It's
Is
a
it
little bit
love
of a
of
combination, if I may, because I wanted to get my bachelor's degree, so I got my bachelor's degree in political science, minor in social science. I did that active duty. Was able to go through. I got associates by completing some of the technical schools that the Air Force offered, so that did
okay?
help. But I wanted to get the bachelor's done, and then I started thinking, well, I want to get a little bit more to help me where I need to move. So a master's degree, I think, is in line, and
Hmm.
eventually the doctorate. I took it is that it's to help me become a little bit more um, qualified in my mind, that I really would have an experience to be able to help both people I work for and work with and who work for me. By having some experience and background in research and knowledge. As I've told people, the bachelor's degree says you know how to listen to the professors. Master's degree says, okay, you know how to kind of listen, but you're bringing up some independent thought. A doctorate is that you've created new thought entirely with the research and added that into the environment. And that was the way I took it in my life, to kind of add a little bit more and then finally to create new thought when I got my doctorate.
Just real quick, what did you get your doctorate in?
I have a doctorate of science in information assurance from Capital
Okay,
Technology University.
that makes a ton of sense, doesn't it?
Yep. Well, it came that way because I got some temporary as I was working my way through. I got things in system studies from university, some from Caltech, others I was trying to get like get certificates on, but they actually had the ability to sit down and do the study that I wanted to. And let's face it, I'm not a coder. I was never really much of the coding type. When I
Right.
was again back as an Intel person at NSA, I was also, and here's how much of a nerd I am, I played D&D. And we thought, oh, and that was the day with all the books. Ooh, I had a friend of mine, he was kind of working in computers, and he said, well, I get access to a computer inside NSA, and we can go and we can create our own run of dungeon rooms and statistics and such, so we could just look it through. So I learned
Yeah.
about holograph cards and learning how to punch those things and work it. That was my only real exposure to programming. So as I
Oh,
went in my career in this, though I could understand the concepts, I didn't really want to get into programming C plus or Fortran or this. It just didn't resonate with me.
yeah.
So I went
So
into the theory and process of how to shape the policies on
interestingly
it.
enough, my first job in the Marine Corps was a programmer,
Oh,
4067,
wow.
and I'm cognitively stunted when it comes to anything like that. I mean, just dumb.
COBOL, I take it, or
Started with COBOL, and then ended up being moved to Ada.
yeah, yeah,
Both
yeah,
of which, again, I'm dumb. I'm just
yeah,
absolutely dumb. Um,
yeah.
and it and of course, in good traditional Marine Corps fashion, when I went to my first duty station, it wasn't as a programmer. It was like a local area technician,
Right,
um,
right. Mm-hmm,
setting up servers, running cables, stuff like that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yeah, I I don't know. Programming is something that if you're smart enough, I think you can do, but you really have to want and you have to like it to be good at it.
I agree. I agree. There's some
Um,
guys that just had the magic around it, and I would look at him in awe.
yeah,
So,
and I am not that person by any way, shape, or form. I'm just dumb. Um, so okay, all right. So you enlisted in the Air Force.
mm-hmm. Yep. I listed in as, like I said, as a it was called a communications analyst. Um, I did my first tour at NSA, four
Okay.
years, and there I had the birth of my oldest son. Was then assigned to Okinawa to
Ah,
work Chinese problem and go out to
raising
Okinawa.
battalion.
And I was assigned to the on the 69, 90th. Um, and there is where I was doing, SIGINT, human working weather, working things in there. But we were assigned on an Army base called Torrey Station. So here I
Yep.
am, still wearing blue, but on Torrey Station. I'm
Nice.
working with Army 05H's, the Diddy Bop intercept operation. So I'm an analyst, and they're doing the collection in Morris. So I'm working with Army at the time,
Huh.
and did that for a while. And from there, we had the birth of our second son, Joshua Letteer. He was born in Okinawa. Um, and it was exciting but it was a rotating shift work, so it made it really hard to plan a lot of things for family
Mhm.
since I had to do the work. Time came to go for an assignment, and I was kind of talking with my wife at the time and said, I would like to do something where we can get a little bit more money, and because linguists were being touted a lot, and I thought,
Okay.
I
Questions
did
are equal.
German in high school. Maybe I could do. So I talked to the recruiters. I've been picking up a little bit of Japanese because I didn't want to be a gaijin. I wanted to try to have some interactions, and it was relatively successful. So I said, well, I could be a Japanese linguist. And they said, no, we're not at war with Japan. We're not going to do that. They said, but how about a Korean? And I said, okay, Korean, but guys, if I take Korean, I'm going to be again away from my family because I have to do 6 months tours up at
Yeah.
Osan. No. I said, okay, well then, how about Russian? Russian. I mean, I got to sit back of an RC 135 and listen to Pusk crawl. I don't want to do that either. And they looked at me, well, you had German and we have openings for German. You want to do German again? I said, okay,
Not
sure.
sure why that wasn't the first option at
So
this point, right?
we went to DLI, 32 weeks of German, um, and then finished up. And my family and I then got orders to West Berlin to the 6912th at the time.
Okay.
And I was assigned there as a linguist, a line linguist intercept, which is why I'm so good with headsets. Um, and did that, and it was kind of nice. That was the location where both our third and fourth son were born. Adam and David were born in Berlin, and I was there in Berlin, and it was. Then they found out, oh well, wait, you're a linguist, but you used to be an analyst too at NSA. Yeah, we're moving you to do an analyst part too. So they moved me up the chain to do a straight day job. Okay, that's cool. But they were working with these new computers that were in. And I had a buddy of mine back in Okinawa went to show me his computer with his uh, um, uh, 5 1/4 floppy drive and all this stuff he was doing on it. And how cool was that? And I said, well, okay. So I started doing a little bit on that, and I got a reenlistment bonus. And so I convinced my wife, let me buy a computer. So I bought a Z100 computer with a
Tandy,
45
right?
megabyte. Sorry.
Tandy, right? Or
No, Zenith. It was a
Zenith.
Zenith
Okay.
brand because it looked like kind of they had the it was a Z100 where
Right.
the government's was Z110. So I got a Z100 45 megabyte hard drive, 65K of RAM. I had a CGA card and a CGA monitor. I had both a 5.5 and a 5 1/4, 3.5 inch floppy drive, and I had a modem. I
Man, you
was
spent the money.
smoking back then. Kid you not. And that's what kind of got me into computers and just
Okay.
started doing things with games and things. In fact, my second oldest son, Major Latier, he would kind of get in with my oldest son and they'd play on the computer. Of course, I'd have this menu system, right? You pick games. So I'd put games or, word processing or budgeting. Well, they watched me once shell to DOS on a C prompt and they
Hmm.
kind of watched me how to did the CD. They watched me over my shoulder, and sure enough, one day they decided to go in and do that themselves, and they found all these other games.
Nice.
And I'm going, oh no, what have I done? That's
So,
how we kind of got into that field.
so if at that time and where you were were you in Berlin just prior to the wall falling, or were you
Yeah, I
there when
was in
it did
there
fall?
before the wall fell and after it fell. I was there for 8 years, so I was there during the time dancing on the wall with some of my friends. Technically
Wow.
illegal because clearance, but I'm technically in East Germany, and we're all. But anyway, um, the yeah, I was there at that time. I honestly was not. I'll be honest, I was not expecting it to happen when I first got there because time had
Hmm.
been since 1962. It'd been up, and you know, sadly, there were a couple times with some Army friends, and we heard gunshots, and we're saying, no, that ain't a deer. Um,
Uh,
the sadness of that. But when it happened, it took us all kind of happily by surprise.
hmm.
And yeah, so that was my time there. So, but I was also there during um, um, the Pan Am hijacking and crashing in over Scotland and things like
Uh,
that. There was
the
the things in
Lockerbie.
there from Libya, and
Yeah.
so I actually realized that with the Army there is such a thing as a bayonet for a shotgun, um,
Yeah.
which I didn't know. And they started guarding the house. My son's school buses were protected with jeeps with 50 cals on them, going there and back because we had heard rumor that intel that they were wanting to try to attack our school buses. It was a crazy time there in Berlin during all that. But
Oh, I
and that
bet.
was
Mhm.
I got up to a staff sergeant in rank up to there. So,
Okay. Where'd you go after that?
well, after that, again, I made the once my commander found out that I had a computer, a position came in to be the head of the small computer shop lead and the computer security officer.
Okay.
Because there's this new thing called certification accreditation that was coming out, and I had to put together all the packages and such for at the time NSA to do the inspections. So I kind of fell into that role. It was a totally new Air Force specialty code, so I moved from what's called a 202 to a 208 to a 491, doing that particular work at the time. And I actually did the. We were the first unit to ever pass and get a full authorization um,
Hmm.
because I did the paperwork, and it was just showing the paperwork, showing you how things identified, teaching the people what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. And when the NSA analysts came out, it was how do you get them out? They didn't want to come out to inspect you. So we invited them, hey, if you want to come to Germany, come the last week of September.
September? Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, after us, then they went down to Oktoberfest, and we got him out. But that's how we got it.
Had to drive in one way or the other, right?
Yeah, yeah, some way to do it, and we were able to get that done. And with that, with a couple of friends of mine, we kind of built out the computer information security program with the Air Force in the intel part of the Air Force at that time.
Hmm.
And with that, when the time came to come back to the States after 8 years, I went to Wright Pat Air Force Base to
Okay.
what's now called the National Air and Space Intelligence Agency. Back then it was known as the Foreign Technology Division. And I was
Gotcha.
assigned there to the security office. I was one of the security team, and my responsibility was the security packages and the constructs of the various computer systems that were operating. And I had the authorities. We weren't really the DAA at the time. That was either NSA or CIA, whose systems you're running. And so I would work depending upon which entity and provide the documentations and did that until it was time for me to retire.
Hmm.
So retired
You,
after 20 years as a
you
master
retired out of
sergeant.
that?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
very interesting. It was a very interesting time. So, but um, then I retired, became a contractor, and
Well, what were your thoughts as you were approaching retirement? Do you remember?
well, it's like again, what am I going to do and how am I going to do it? I did have some people who had already retired that were in for some of the companies, Booz Allen and such, which is
Mhm.
where I initially went, saying, "Hey, look, it's really good work here. It's solid work." Sadly, at the time, my first marriage was falling apart, and so it was an opportunity to kind of maybe take a breather and separate, which.
That's a long
Uh,
time together.
well, we were 20 years 20 years together, and then um, sadly, like I said, it fell apart. We're still friends, though. Interesting. We can talk about it later on, but we are still friends today. But
That's a good thing.
it is well because we agreed we weren't going to take and use the kids as pawns.
Hmm.
So So we worked through that. I started working at Booz Allen. That's when I moved out here to the East Coast to Virginia, and kind of got into it. And I was kind of worried because my work ethic was I got to put in all this time. Yeah, and I had people say, no, 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 no. Yeah, you can. They're billable hours. This is the only time you're supposed to do for the billable hours. Don't go
Yeah.
over. Oh, I didn't know that. So,
Yeah.
um, but
Um, okay, so 20 years Air Force, retired Master Sergeant. Um, I'm just curious. Were you paying attention at all when the Air Force did away with the warrant officer ranks?
it's interesting because when I enlisted,
Mhm.
at that time is when they had the last Air Force warrant officer. When I enlisted.
Oh, I thought it was the middle '80s. It was way
No,
back in
no,
the middle
it
'70s.
was in middle '80s. The last one retired. They
Oh, yeah,
they had
that makes
stopped
sense.
creating him in '74, and
Well,
so they still had him, and now they're bringing him back again 50 years
yeah,
later.
I was just actually reading that too, where there it would be interesting, and I I understood where the Air Force was coming from because what they said, as I understood it, was that there's no reason why a senior staff NCO can't have the same technical acumen that the warrant
And
officer ranks do.
which is what they
But,
started building out. That's why they built it the Chief Master Sergeant to
right.
have that level of expertise and experience. So it kind of blended that. You're right.
Where I think they screwed up, and it'd be interesting to see their thought process for bringing them back. What I think they screwed up in my mind was always what they missed was you not only you got somebody who was technically good, but they also had the authority to make decisions, and that was the piece that I thought they missed was
I
they
think you're right to agree, but if I may,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
chiefs and senior master sergeants really do have a lot of authority within the enlisted corps, and many
Mhm.
times, the senior officers, lieutenant colonels and such, they knew the chief was going to take care of things, and
Mhm.
so. And even to this day, there's still that deference of that.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
but I
You
think you're
can't,
right. You think about the struggle we have even within the Marine Corps when you have a young officer who's going to be a new commo. Congratulations, lieutenant. Here you are. By the way, once you become the lieutenant, lose the screwdriver. It's not your job to do the fixing. It's
right.
your warrant officers. It's your enlisted staff. But we have young men and women who are very interested in the field, but they got this rank, and so they want to do more. But how
Hmm.
do they balance that? And I think that was even some things I saw in the Air Force. You have some, captains and majors. Oh, I want to be in charge. I do these things. Well, how much do you understand and know? And let me. And this is where I kind of got this. Let me teach you how we do this, lieutenant or captain. And
Hmm.
I had one captain who came back was a master sergeant. He had in Berlin. He had such an attitude. He was going to get back at everybody who did him wrong, and I had some real issues with him too. I had some not nice thoughts what I wanted to do to him, and my first wife, being a very religious woman, says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And I said, yes, yes, O Lord, let me be an instrument in thy hands. you know, kind of rough, but you had that a little bit, and now we're bringing him back again, and I'm not sure have they defined what skill sets and authorities and responsibilities they're going to have. I think you have an
Yeah,
absolute good point on that.
yeah. That's. It'd be interesting to understand what it was that made them decide to go. If it was just a desire to look somewhat similar to the other services, maybe, which is always possible. Was it a
Yeah.
purely human resources administrative function to try to retain people?
How do you
That
retain person and
yeah,
give them rank and a little bit more money to
yeah,
encourage them? Because I think that's probably why. Oh, I've got all these smart E5s, E6s here,
for
you
getting
know.
out.
But how do I? Yeah, we're getting out. And let's face it, we didn't even know this in the Marine Corps. We have
Hmm.
young Marines that once they get these technical skills, many times off they leave. Now, for us, I'll say this publicly, we did differently, and I call myself we for the Marine Corps. You still see the flag. We say, look, yeah, you go out, but many of our Marines, yeah, they'll come back though, serving the Marine Corps as a contractor, but they're still helping the Marine Corps. So we still get
True.
that history, that understanding, that background. I'm not so sure with some of the others
Hmm.
services at this point. So maybe they'll
Well,
get
it's
that this time.
yeah, well, with other services, it might be so large that can't, because
Yep.
if you get out of the Marine Corps in the comm field or the data field or whatever,
Hmm.
and you come back to the Marine Corps, there's a very high likelihood you're going to come back to the same places you were
Yep.
before
Yep. And
with
you
the
had
Air
the
Force.
people that know you. Yep. You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what was your personal favorite duty station, and what was your family's?
Berlin.
Both.
Actually, it was our first. Well, we all we my ex and I loved Okinawa. Sweet,
Hmm.
nice people, great environment. She told me later I would have stayed there forever if I could have, if I would have known. Um, but again, Berlin was also really good. We love the area, love the environment. A lot of good friends there. My sons could go out and play at night and just I mean, by the forest, and they pretended they were um, Lord of the Rings, or they're pretending they're hunters or warriors or whatever,
Right.
and they could do that and not have to worry about anything because there was an aspect of safety, uh, being yeah, maybe being an occupying force and such, and we were in the American section, but we didn't have issues. The boys didn't worry about going out. They can come back late. Whatever scrapes they had with kids, got it, But we really liked being there. It was kind of nice. It was kind of fun there. Um, so as first was Berlin, second one was Okinawa.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I spent a year and a half in Switzerland, and quite a bit of that time was going north into Germany.
hmm
We would shop at the commissary and the PX
hmm
in Germany on base because it was
hmm
so much cheaper, and then
oh
take
yeah,
it back.
oh yeah,
Um, Germany, I did never made that to Berlin, which is really
right,
it's funny. I look back at some of the opportunities I had, and being young, I made very poor choices. Like I had an opportunity to go to Bella Woods at the 50th anniversary,
whoa,
but I didn't want to march around in a dress blues, and I was like, I'm not going to go. I look at that
yeah,
now, I'm like, you're an idiot. Dude, what an idiot. The opportunities, the people I would know meeting. Berlin's another one where
yeah,
I was right. I mean, I spent 18 months in Geneva, so I went all over
wow,
Europe. I just
yeah.
never made it to Berlin. Um,
Our oldest son was stationed with um, UCOM AFRICOM for a while.
yep.
He was one of the Marine intel guys there. And so my present wife, my wife Carol, and I, was a DLA person. I met her when she was working at the Defense Logistics Agency in information assurance and such. So she's
Okay.
part of the field. But we went out there and spent time with my oldest son and his, at the time, two children. And we got into a van and we drove from Stuttgart to Berlin. And I'm having all this, wait, I know that city's name. I know that town's name. Oh my gosh, I'm driving in areas where I was targeting before.
Oh,
It was surreal. And then
interesting.
we pull into Berlin, the southern part of Berlin, near where we used to live. I had tears. I had the
Hmm.
heart pull because it was all the sweet memories of being in that area, and I still to this day can see the area, can see the apartment areas and such as we went there to visit. We were in the back showing my son, yeah, hey, this is where you remember the playground. Oh yeah, I remember this. My grandson and granddaughter were looking at it, playing on the same um, playground equipment that their dad played when he
That's
was a
cool.
kid.
Cool.
And I had these Germans coming out and asking me in German, who are you? And so since I could converse with them, I told them who I was and I was stationed here. I said, oh, and that was my apartment up there, diese Wohnung war meine, and telling them how long. And I said, oh yeah, we had two parking spots assigned. And they went, you got two parking spots? Yeah, well, apparently when the city turned back over, one company rents the apartments and another rents the parking spaces. So you have to do.
Unbelievable.
Oh, they were polite and kind, and there was this old closed store, this old small shopette, but it was all closed up, locked up, and they kept saying, "What's that building? No one's ever opened it, gone inside."
Cool.
So I had to say, "Yeah, it's a shopette. It was where we used to buy bread and milk."
Yeah.
Oh. But that was our time to go back and kind of reminisce in Berlin and take at least our oldest son, and look around and have that wonderful time for the memories. So if you ever get a chance to go someplace where you have the memory, of your active duty, boy, go do it. Go do it.
Yeah, that's
Particularly at my age, as I'm looking back, go
mhm.
do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I would assume that would have put you in retirement, what, 92, 93?
Actually, no. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, about 92. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
Retired in 92. I worked for a little bit for Booz Allen, then SAIC for a couple, 3 years. And that's when I started getting into some things with, first I was tasked to help the Navy. Um, it was precursor to NIWIC. I can't even remember it now. But helping them with some
Yeah.
of the information security, information assurance things and paperwork and constructs. Then I'd help Marine Corps. In fact, it was some things from 2MEF had come back and they were asking for some help. So I was starting to help with them and I met some of the people. And apparently I piqued the interest of a colonel or two. And when the position opened up, um, they asked me to apply for it. And so I went in there and I applied for it. It was actually when I started work, it was May of 2003 when I started working full time
Really?
for the Marine Corps. Yeah. But you may have
Huh.
seen me before because I was doing other things with the Marine Corps and the Navy for packages and such and working with 2MEF, working with 1MEF as I was scattered about. So,
Huh.
but
Okay, I thought it was a little bit earlier than that. I was
but
thinking because
the
I made the lab move into the information assurance field in 2001 with
Yeah, it
that
was
first
just
batch.
start. Yep, it's just starting to get into there. When I came in, in fact, you had a lady who was in the billet. Then she left to go to the army and was gapped for a bit. And General Thomas was in charge of C4 at the time. Well, yeah, I think it was still C4. And yeah, I met with him. He's a 1 star and still a good friend to this day. And I started working for him. In fact, I even brought up the aspect of authorizing officials. I said, we need to have it because at the time, even though I would trust what the fleets were doing, and I said, oh, okay, if you've, okay out there, you know, 3MEF, fine. But when we had instances where the G6s were letting Marines connect into foreign national infrastructure without approval and protection, it kind of went, okay, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And we put the word out. We're going to centralize the authorities with me and my office under the direction leadership, of course, of General Thomas. But that's where we stood up um, the information insurance program. And then when he left, General Allen came in and he
Hmm.
moved us from a branch up to a division, and I became they promoted me to a 15, and working for him, and I had worked and been in that billet since the time I left in 2022 to go to CIO, and all the different leaders in the meantime. So,
So obviously, coming in on the ground floor like that, you had a significant hand in shaping the direction forward. And obviously, General Thomas would have, and General Allen would have.
yep.
Were there? Can you think of others that had a really significant input into how what shaped? Uh,
Let's see. General Nally
yeah,
had a very protective approach because there are some cases where we'd have
because
the
he was two,
DoD and
right?
the Navy wanted to take things away from us,
Hmm.
but General Nally was said, no, look, we are the Marine Corps. We're going to have our own email address. We're going to do the things. We'll follow the policies, but we
Hmm.
have our missions, our requirements, our needs. And I agreed with that. Having been in the Air Force, having worked with the Army and the others, has said no. There are certain mission needs. I had one time we had a requirement that was coming out of uh, um, Marco Syscom, and they were trying to force Marines when you were going to Fluge and such to put your token into your laptop to log in when you're in a tactical environment. And I said, no, what's the matter with you? No, well, it says the rules they have to. It says, yeah, if you're in a standard network, guys, this is combat. They have bullets whizzing about their head. They've got it. What if they lose it? Come on. So I started
Yeah,
working with, as I talked to Marines, heck, during OIF 2 and such, I would get calls from 2MEF, from
hmm.
the G6 at 2 o'clock in the morning. Hey, can we do things? Man, I got into it because I said, if you're going to put me in there at the ground floor to build these things up, I've got to get the Marines to tell me, okay, what do we need? Where's the balance? We still have to have, because still under NMCI at the time. How do we
Oh yeah.
shape that? that we can do it in such a way that we still get what we need and have the contract to do what they're supposed to do to make sure they get what they need. And that was my growing up of this. And I had one great colonel who was the exec to General Allen at the time pulled me aside and he says, "Okay, Ray, you're a 15 now." "Yeah." He says, "That means you're like a colonel." "What?" He says, "Yeah, the policies, the protocols and such, you're like a colonel. You got to act like it and lead like it and take care of things like it." And I went, "Oh, crap. Okay." So I started learning everything I could in this to say, where are the authorities? What can I do? How can I shape it with leadership? And still make sure that I reached out to the fleet. Man, I went on aircraft rides because of people, trying to work with handhelds on a in the back of a helicopter. I said, "Well, let me see what it's like. Let's go on there and do it." Um,
Yeah.
because I figured I didn't have your experience. I didn't stand on yellow footprints like you did. I didn't get the chance to go through the things that your trial by fire that made you and forged you as the owner of the title Marine. I had to work around it to say, where can I get close to it? So at least if I'm back here, I know what you're thinking, so I can try
Mm.
to help it. At the same time, I could translate that to others who may not be able to see what they're trying to do. So
Right.
that's where it kind of got into it. And I had a lot of everybody know it's the team of people that were working for me. I had great people working for me that are
Oh yeah.
still out there that were you know former former active Marines, just civilian now, retired Marines. Give me the insight, give me the view, showing me what's going on.
I'm thinking, as you described you're describing a group of people, but the one that pops to mind the most from that time period, at least the early 2000s, is Janet Palmer.
Yes, my dear friend Janet Palmer. Yes, miss her.
Yep.
Yep,
No, that's
yep.
she's good
She was a
people.
she was a Booz Allen contractor time when I came on deck, and she was also trying to give me some advice. And I was trying to be a polite guy. Here I'm a 14, and I'm a
Right.
branch head, but I'm going, "Oh, yeah, well, can we do this?" And she said, "You're in charge.
Do it.
Do it. Be a leader. Tell them how you want it done. Give them the left, right, lateral limits, and go for it." And she
Mm.
was always that great person. Up into her passing, we'd always have connections and talk all the time. She was a great person, a deep love
Yeah.
for what she was trying to do for the Marine Corps and for information assurance and cybersecurity.
Yeah,
Very
she's
much
good
so.
people.
I got Jeff Combs, who has
Oh yeah.
helped me when I had the range, when we were given the DoD cybersecurity range to do. He and his team that worked on it. Dan Norton, who ran my white teams. That was the thing with General Allen. We wanted to have an independent cybersecurity assessment capability because he says, "Well, I want a red team." I said, "No, General, there's only one red team. This is where they work. You want something that's independent that can report to you as the CIO is supposed to, and here's where it says you're supposed to have this." So we created the white team. And because at the time, as Marfa Cyber was standing up and they were trying to, the colored teams, I said, "Okay, you want red, you want blue over there, fine. We'll do white." And that's why I call them the uh, information cybersecurity analysis and defense team, ICE demons, because I had to give them some type of name that tracked into it, but they were to be totally independent. They're not going to do any gotchas, but they went out there, and Dan Norton and his team were great. They go out there, they do the assessment as if you were getting a CCRI, whatever, and they say, "Here you go, this is what you need to fix." And because they did that so well over time, the Marine Corps never failed a CCRI except once, which was a no notice. And even we were there beforehand. We had just given them what they needed to do to fix it, and in comes a no notice, and they found the same things. So
Damn
that
it.
was the only time we failed.
Damn it.
But
Um,
you got me
I'll
rambling
do-
now.
now I was really surprised to see you leave in 2022, right?
It just got a little rough because again you had leadership that became very focused on other things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I've always believed in trying to be truthful,
Mm-hmm.
but I had some things where people were lying to leaders, and I was getting upset with that. but I couldn't get that message across, and so it created some difficult tension. I had some leaders that didn't have experience in the field, and we're looking. I've got to be careful. I don't want people
Yeah,
screaming out, but what
obviously.
they're doing, they wanted to kind of look at some things they were supposed to. They thought they were supposed to do. I was trying to teach. I mean, I was teaching with one leader about things, and I said, "Okay, here's how to do this, this," and I was told, "Dr. Letteer, don't mansplain things. Come on, dude." And I went, "I'm not. I'm talking to you like a professor. Like I would teach my college students. I'm
Yeah.
trying to help you if you got to do
Wow.
it." And you had another leader there was kind of into themselves and a lot of, as much as I would try to help shape it, it was always into their approach and their view and not thinking long term. And that's when I said, you know what? I It was too toxic. I just got to go someplace else.
It's interesting you say that because, especially after retiring and getting out of that, I, I, I say this lovingly, but it's also very true that that echo chamber of confirmation bias that is the core.
Yeah.
It's a
Hmm.
self-licking ice cream cone
Yep.
of egos and personalities. Um, I used to tell everybody, I would tell them the greatest thing about the Marine Corps is the Marine.
Hmm.
The worst thing about the Marine Corps is the Marine, and it's inculcated from boot camp.
Yeah.
Everything is this is mine. This is mine. It's my Marine Corps. It's my dirt. My
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
and I would go talk to people in different organizations about trying to do something, and they would be very possessive over what it is they were doing.
Hmm.
And it's just like this isn't personal. This isn't your network. This is a Marine Corps network. You're just here for 3 to 5 years to shepherd it on to the next person. But again, it's a love hate relationship because they did take such a deep personal
Well, you want
emotional
that.
connection.
You
You
want the
they,
love.
yeah,
Yeah.
they did such a great job. It
Yeah.
was a double edged sword in a way.
Yeah, that I remember there was one thing that was that, and I can share this with General Allen because it turned out to be a good thing, is that they wanted to do this one thing for the ACMAC, and I said, okay, General, you can't do it because it's this and why. And at the time, of course, again being the DAA, I really can't authorize because it's going to break this and this. And he says, no, the ACMAC wants it, he's going to get it. I said, okay, General, you're absolutely right. You're the CIO. I'll write the approval out for your
And you
signature,
said it. And you said
and you can sign it. And whatever happened, you and he went. And he said,
it.
"Okay, maybe not." And I said, "Yeah, General, I'm not trying to stop things. I just try. I don't want things, as I always said, I don't want things that we do in here to get put on the front page of the Washington Post that were bad. I want it to always be for what we do for good." And
Mhm.
sometimes people they don't understand it. They want things because it makes them feel like the great example you gave again of the text things with Blackberries. They need certain things they want, but some of them say, "Well, I want this thing for I want to take this thing with me all the time." Okay, you can, but I'll tell you what. If you want it, you got to do it this way. I became one of the people that said yes if you do it this way. One of the
Right.
phrases I tell my staff is, find a way to say yes, but fight stupid. So if we would get that part that people were just not thinking about it, they just lost a vision. How do I help shape it a little bit so we can kind of get to it, but still protect them? And that I think is an attitude I would like to see more of in the world on this.
So I'm really fortunate. The person I work for now is he's a civilian. He's never been military, but I will tell you he is in the top three easily of the people that I've ever worked for. And
Excellent.
one of the reasons, well, I mean, there's many reasons. One, he's far smarter than me. Uh, he's far more efficient. He's far more capable. But one of the most important things, honestly, is he approaches. He doesn't approach me or the team as he's our boss necessarily. He approaches it from a perspective of what can I do to be of service to you guys
Hmm.
to make you successful.
Hmm.
And I in turn have tried to adopt that. I, I tell people, and I always hate telling people I work in IT, right? Because then they have this vision of what I do, and it's really not that.
Do you fix
It's about
printers?
managing people, about making sure. I put it this way: I have a team that I supervise of probably 30 people. but I don't do that. I serve them. What do they need to be
Yeah,
successful? I make sure they have what they need, and then I'm good. It makes me look good,
you're
and it
spot
works
on.
out.
What I would tell my staff is that what's the Marine Corps mission? Put steel on target, close in on the enemy, and destroy them. That's the
Yep.
Marine Corps mission. What do we do in our area, cybersecurity and IT and stuff, to help facilitate that it makes those ground Marines or they're doing it, or the air Marines or they're flying, whatever, that they can close in on the enemy, put steel on target, and destroy them. If we
Yep.
keep it simple that way, then we're not going to get into the what ifs or hows or all the. It's the mission. And again, we get away here in DC. You know, get out of the ivory tower, guys. You got to remember what you got to do is that's fine here, but you go out to Pendleton, Lejeune, or hey, you go forward with them when they have to do an Indo-PACOM or a Westpac, I'm sorry, European tour or Middle East tour. See what they're doing. See what they have to live with and work with. Then you get it. I
So
was hope I was
obviously,
successful in that. I really do.
so you're obviously a Class C individual who's not going to talk trash about anybody. But I'm just curious, generally speaking, are you happy with where you left the Marine Corps as far as how
I
they
wish I
approach
could have
it?
done a little bit more. I mean, I'd set up the policies were pretty solid. People were still arguing about some of the policies and there was some rebellion in some locations. Well, I don't want to follow that. I'll approve this myself. Guys, you can't do that. And when people would kind of do things on their own and not tell headquarters, I would kind of tell leadership, be careful. This is the foundation for creating issues that you may not know about. And we have the ability in the Marine Corps because of the command and construct to be able to see across. Yeah, I remember one time General Crowell was a great general too, but I remember when he came in, one of the things they were complaining, well, Dr. Letteer, he doesn't know all the things we're doing. We see things there left and right and all this other stuff out here. And I'm going, well, yeah, okay, but guess what, guys? I kind of do see it. Then what happens when the general comes out and says, oh, General, I'm sorry, we can only see 74% of the network. I went, okay, stop. You just lambast me on one by saying because you see it all and I don't know it. Then you're trying to say, oh, we have a hard time because we can't see it all. Which is it, guys? Come on.
Yeah.
It's that type of tap dancing around. I think undermines the solid approach of what really the Marines have done and done well. I think the policies we've established are good. Um, I've heard they're not doing the ice demons, the white teams anymore. I'm sad because you've got to have somebody who's independent of Unit X or even independent of Mark for Cyber for doing things. They run the red team, but you got to have somebody to say, "Are you still doing things okay?" That's not going to get balkanized, or pulled into Stockholm syndrome constructs out in the area with the fleet. No, it's independent. We're not going to lambast you, but you got to have open and honest so you can all fix together.
Yep.
And we've kind of lost that for right now. But there's still good people there. The things I did not like is when one of the decision at IC4 was to take away the DoD cybersecurity range. We were just making so much progress with that, and no, we need to move to cloud, so we want to take that money to do other things. I went, what are you talking about? I got more for cyber in here. I got the units in here. We're training in here. You're doing live tests. I mean, we had the actual IP range. We had to have it as a closed C because it would cause
Yeah.
catastrophic conflict. But we had it as real as we could make it, and it didn't cost you in the fleet to do it.
Yeah.
And then away it went. And I'm thinking, well, there's a great resource. I would have loved to have kept people on so you could actually train. There's one thing about doing it here, but the next part is actually putting your hands on keyboards and doing it that makes it go to long-term memory.
So
So,
I understand where they're going with wanting to go to the cloud and everything, but
yeah.
I just
Which one?
I can't help to think we're very slowly but naively migrating to one basket.
That was the whole aspect too. Is that okay? You guys want to go to cloud? There were three vendors. Two of them had all this stuff together. I said, fine. Here are the requirements. We had the defense. Gosh, they were a defense they're a contractor organization, work for the DoD. They're trying to do independent work and build out for clouds. One of the things they're trying to get them to do is follow the risk management process, follow the RMF. Oh, it doesn't work. It's terrible. It's too hard. It's too complex. No, it's not. So we sat down and showed them, hey, if you're doing this in Amazon Cloud, show me I get this capability I can measure. Show me I can do that capability. Oh, you're using the tools that they talk. I don't care. As long as it's an equal quantitative output, you want to do it on an S3? Show me this way. And they went, it works. And we were actually the first one to give them an approval for a capability they built for us in the Marine Corps over anybody else because it said it's not that hard. But you're right. You put things, I keep saying, remember, guy, and you've heard this too. What is cloud? It's somebody else's computer at another location.
Sure. Yeah.
So let's just make sure that what we've got is protected. Let's make sure that we have, that we can see. One of the things I was pressing that we did do before I left was we pushed out a new red team directive or an instruction on how to do red teams, or maybe a directive that said, here's independent assessments in the cloud environment. You commercial guys, no, you got to show us everything because underneath the managed hypervisor, underneath that, we need what's going under there too. Show us and share with us so we can make sure that nothing bad's happening. That type of an approach gets away from the concerns I'm putting everything in one basket and I don't know what's going on. And then surprise, surprise, you get pwned and you don't know why.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so 2022, that would have been 23. So you were just short of 20 years with the Corps at that point, right?
yeah, it was 19 years, a little over 19 years. I did about I think 19 years, 2 months, and I did the last 10 months with the DoD CISO's office. I retired fully on December 31st, 2023.
Wow.
And that put me at uh, total work time 20 years Air Force, 20 years DoD, 9 years as a contractor, but I was working for the DoD anyway, so I say almost 50 years of working for the DoD.
So 23, you fully retired.
Yep, I'm fully retired. Yep. I've, I've been drawing my Social Security account stuff. I'm sitting at home taking care of my wife. Um, she had a couple of accidents and is slowly recovering, so I need to be here to take care of her. And I love it, no problem. But I've actually had some people, when are you going to come back? Guys, I'm not going to make this schlep of the Pentagon anymore. I mean, if something ever comes up that I'm doing something here online, I'll probably help, but I need to kind of focus on her a little bit now. Our My oldest son, Gunny Sergeant Aaron Letteer, actually retired last year as well after his 20 some years.
It was
Um,
Intel, right?
Yep, he was Intel. He did a short tour of helping with a Wounded Warrior program as a consultant to help individuals with their veterans benefits and such. Didn't progress as well, so he has since moved back to Ohio and loving it. Our second oldest son, Major Letteer, is going to be the XO now of 8th Com this June. So he's going out of MARSOC over to 8th Com for a little bit after doing a 6-month Indo-PACOM tour. Um, our third oldest son is a master sergeant. He was Air Force, got sucked into Space Force, so he's a guardian now. I tease him about don't wear red shirts, that type of thing, but he's doing great
Well,
work as in cybersecurity. But um,
I have to admit,
go ahead.
I've never understood why we went with Space Force rather than I would have anticipated like a Cyber Force or some sort of, which don't get me wrong, there's a lot of
Nope.
functionality in Space Force that's very similar, telecommunications and Intel, but
Yeah.
it was just an odd choice. I thought something else would have come first.
I should admit I was kind of against anybody saying let us create a separate cyber force. The reason being
Yeah,
is that if you as a commander needed resources, uh, but you had to ask somebody else as another component to provide it to you, your issue may not be their issue. So I always
sure.
maintain keep the mission set with the services. Air Force mission, Navy mission, Army, Marine Corps. Keep it there. Now, somebody said, well, Space Force is a new environment. Well, I've got air, sea, land, cyber. Now I have space. Maybe that was a thought. Don't
Hmm.
know. He does great for cybersecurity work. He's saying there's a
Cool.
lot of things in satellite communications and things they're trying to work on. Um, God bless him. He's at Vandenberg. Our youngest is in healthcare in the Air Force. He's a staff sergeant. He's a nutritional healthcare specialist. So
Okay.
they just moved back to Wright Pat. So all four sons are have been or are active duty. And it's interesting is they show the dichotomy of me is that my two oldest sons Marines and my two youngest sons are Air Force. And sorry, it's the issue of your dad's personality. I guess I'm sorry, but they're
So
great. They're my heroes. They are really great.
yeah, and I've had the pleasure of meeting a couple of them a time or two throughout the years. So I'm glad to hear they're doing well. Um, just describe to me how you were feeling as you were coming at that point where you knew you were legitimately going to retire. Like you were
That's
legitimately going to go home and stay home.
that was it was kind of what am I going to do? First, I want to make sure that I left everything in as good a position as I possibly could.
Right.
I was pushing to get a lot of the documentation done. In fact, it was again they brought me in as a deputy director in the CISO's office, and then halfway through my time there, they made me director. So I got
Oh wow.
bumped up to operational risk assessments. So I had to look at make sure that the risk assessment aspects and things are being done for approvals for the exceptions to policy. I was looking at exceptions to policy constructs, but I want to make sure the policy was clear. The DoD directive on or section on red teams that was being redone. I want to make sure that part was done. They have to do other cyber things, but those things that were in my box, I want to make sure was getting done because I did not want to walk out and
Right.
leave something still not addressed. But I'll tell you, it was bizarre. I mean, right up to the very end, even the day they had this nice farewell for me, family came in, it was great. But I had to go back and still do some other things before I could wrap up on that. And that was just the, and again, I want to say the work ethic, like a lot of teenagers, you may not have been the greatest, but I got to, it was built up of a little bit of a foundation in my Air Force intel time, but it was really matured and solidified in my Marine Corps time to
Hmm.
get it done. Because what I have to do, people in the fleet, people out, they need that. And if they don't have it, I've not done my job to help them. So that was my approach. But then that last day, and I turned in my CAC, turned in my blue card, turned in all the, and I walked out the Pentagon. I went, oh my gosh.
Damn.
I just drove home, listened to music, kind of like, so. Anyway,
Did you ever have, in the weeks that followed, did you ever have a moment like, oh crap, maybe that was a bad choice. Maybe I should go back to work.
no, actually, I didn't. I did have where I missed the people or I missed a particular thing or, oh, I want to help them. I mean, I don't look at LinkedIn as much as I used to. But I would look at it and say, oh, okay, they're kind of going down that way. Defense industrial base, I was helping with, some of the CMCC things I was working with to kind of help on. But I kind of thought they've got it, and I was counseled both by my wife and a couple of my good friends to say, look, and it was counsel, it wasn't beating me up. It was said, look, they've got to continue on. You're not going to be here forever. They've got to be able to teach them what they need to do, which is what I try to do, so they can continue on. And if they've ever needed any help, they can reach out and ask my opinion. I'll give them my opinion. But they've got to step on because, like it or not, I'm old and gray and crusty, and there's a lot of young men and women coming up afterwards. We got to help shape them so they can continue on for the rest of us. And I do like sleeping in till 7:30 in the morning.
I, I would like not having to make that drive to the Pentagon. That would
Oh
suck.
yeah, I was paying to do it. I wouldn't do that. I actually paid to go on because I figured 35 minutes there rather than 2 hours. It was
Uh,
worth the money for my time, and I
yeah,
could do it there and come back. That was,
insanity.
yeah, I know, I know.
Oh, um, it looks like I might have froze up there for a minute.
Yeah,
Hopefully, that's well,
it's okay. I mean, I think it showed might have frozen too a little bit at one point. I hope it didn't, but
we'll see how long it freezes for. But Well, we can keep talking.
You look very thoughtful, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's a good look for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I have to keep it that way. So, okay, so now you're fully retired.
Mm-hmm.
You got kids that are busy. They're successful.
Mm-hmm.
That, that's not cool.
Mm.
Um, let's see if I can sort this thing out.
Hey, you're a technician. You can do it.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Uh,
Well, while you're working, I'll tell you a little bit more what I'm kind of doing at it.
yep.
My faith, not to do any preaching or anything, but I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Hmm.
People used to call us Mormons, but so a lot of that is I'm focusing a little bit on some of that aspects. We teach at Sunday school for kids, so we're pretty regular in our faith there. I do family history research to help in genealogy aspects and things along that line. So that's kind of what we're doing to fill our days now. Of course, I got tons of home utility things I got to fix. I mean, look at my sloppy office. I still got to get things put away on. And got to get the garage cleaned out and got to get the yard cleaned up. So there's just chores that I kind of need to do that's going to keep me busy. But my wife and I were talking today is that we need to kind of work out some way where we can get out to be with others, to have more adult conversation. I mean, she and I we think so much alike on many things that not really any controversy, but we want to get out there to kind of meet with other people still. I want to get back and see my team again and say, hey, let's go um, down to the barbecue place or something and just sit and talk. I kind of would like to kind of get to do that, but we aren't quite there yet. Got graduation coming up for my oldest son's daughter who's staying with us right now, so we're looking at that, and that's kind of it right now for the what's coming up um, on the future.
Have you sorted out yourself on like any hobbies?
Well, I've been in martial arts for many years. I have a fourth degree black belt from the Bujinkan in Budo Taijutsu, so I still go down. I still hit the bag here once in a while and I get really frustrated. Um, I have authored one book with
Really?
a team on how to do, for people who are transitioning military into the cybersecurity field. I was thinking about doing
Really?
another one on maybe the cybersecurity from a more of a simplistic viewpoint, the Tao of cybersecurity,
Huh.
because there's certain things which are pretty simple, pardon me, but get lost in some complexity. Kind of want to go back into what are the simple constructs into it and kind of maybe push that out. Um,
Hmm.
maybe kind of do some writing in that. I had been a professor at three different universities, but I'm not much into teaching at a university level right now. Not seeing a lot of the persistence and the desire on learning that I used to see. So,
Interesting. Um, trying to think what my camera problem might be here, but it's not really that important. Looking back at your career and your
mhm.
life, um, is there, I wouldn't call them regrets, but are there moments where you wish you'd taken different directions?
Yeah, yeah, there are certain instances, even from careers. When I was younger, I really wanted to help people more, and I was interested in medicine,
Okay,
but I was advised not to do it, so I
really
didn't. Um,
interesting. I wonder what the motivation behind that was.
well, actually, it was the motivation was that there was a fear that I would fail, and the person who was advising was afraid that I would fail and didn't want me to have the trauma of failure. So it
Huh?
was while it was done from an approach of internally, I don't want you to get hurt. It would have been
Right.
better if it came out that, hey, I trust you, go for it anyway. But
Yeah.
um, the uh, I kind of wish I would have done more maybe in my military career to try to get a commission. Um, kind of did it a little bit, but didn't push it that hard. Just because I want to be a little bit better of a more mature leader. But as it was, the Marine Corps was kind enough to accept me in and give me these leadership positions and training and responsibilities. So I did kind of get it in a
Hmm.
different way. Um, I wish I were a little less selfish when I was younger. There were some things where I was just a little too selfish and should have thought about more about others, but learning more with that. Um, I do wish I would have done a little bit more in maybe a little bit better of coding. I had a friend of mine that says you don't need to worry about it. You understand the principles. That's good enough. But sometimes if you go through the struggle of, oh, I put that bracket in the wrong spot, maybe you're a
Yeah,
little bit more appreciative of what people are going through. Um,
yeah, it's
but when my wife went to the hospital recently, it was pretty bad, and I was getting very upset with a couple of the doctors, and I knew how to read her medical records. And again, doctor of science, I know how to do research, and so I
right.
researched everything about it. I said she's got sepsis, her polycalcs, they're 3.85. It's not supposed to be higher than zero point 0.6. What's going on here? I mean, I'm zapping. Now the nurses, they're going, yay, you know. But I'm going through this, and I talked to my doctor about all this, and he says, "Oh, there you are, good." I talked to my physician. I had a meeting with him, appointment. He says, "Well, wow, everything." I was explaining. He says, "Wow, do you want to take the MCAT examinations?" No, I'm too old for that
Well,
now. But thank you. But I did, if anything, a great question you asked earlier about what did the learning, did you do it for, to learn or to meet goals and such? I think one thing I have to appreciate is the fact that I've learned that I can study, that I can read, that any of us, if we go
yeah,
through this process of particularly what I learned from the regimen of the doctoral program is that I can read, I can do resources, I can do references, I can pull it all together, and I can kind of come to my conclusions and learn. There's a lot of,
there's certainly a skill set associated with
yeah,
doing research
yeah,
and critically thinking about what it
yeah.
is you've looked at.
Having the open mind. It doesn't mean, I mean, okay, so if you don't understand medical terminology, learn it. Learn the lexicon. If you don't understand aspects of, the comm technology, particularly tactical comm technology, learn the lexicon. Learn about it. And then in turn, you can then become more appreciative of what people are doing.
What's any outside of just enjoying retirement, any significant desires to get out of the next 20, 25, 30 years?
Actually, the thing is, I would want to get my house clean. I want to be able so we can get my sweetheart better with her legs so she can stand better, so we can go up and do a little more traveling.
There you
Um,
go.
Go out and see our grandkids. It's nice that they're all kind of close right now, except for my third oldest son who's out in Vandenberg. But
Yeah.
we want to be able to kind of go out and do things like that. Um, but it's just enjoying the day. I mean, it's kind of stupid and weird, but I mowed my lawn yesterday, and I'm going, or the day before, I went, man, really looks nice. The trees are so pretty. The flowers are so. I'm kind of wait, what's going on here? And I'm kind of,
That
I
ability, that
kind
ability to
of,
slow down and be aware is
yeah,
nice.
yeah, yeah. I still like the idea of reading and studying. There's some things I'm looking at right now that my son, Major Letteer, Joshua Letteer, has recommended on OSINT and such, because I have a definite concern of an information operations construct in today's news environment. Sadly, I'm not trying to get too political, but I'm kind of saying,
No,
okay, these things are shaped way, way too much. And I watched what happened in East Germany. I kind of know what those guys are doing. So
yeah,
I kind
it's,
of want to learn more about it. So
it's entertainment propaganda at this point. So
yeah, yeah. So
i- if okay, so let's just suppose and hope that at some point in 15 years your grandkids stumble across the on YouTube as YouTube still exists. Anything you want to say is kind of in closing.
have faith in yourself. It's okay to make a mistake. We all
True.
have to make mistakes. Edison once said, it took him 99 tries to do things before he could find the right way to do it. I think it's the same way. I think in our life sometimes we believe that we have to be perfect every step of the way. The choice we make is irrevocable if we choose the wrong thing. That's not true. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. Um, be compassionate to your fellow man. Don't care what their beliefs are, their constructs, even their opinions of themselves, or, and I'm going to be a little bit political. Please forgive me. What frickin' pronoun you think you need to use. Um, don't care. If that's what they think about themselves, there. You can still be kind and nice to people. Just be kind and
Mhm.
nice to people. Sometimes if you're in the store and you see someone's having a hard time, the cashier, talk nice. Be nice to them. It's not that hard. Realize that some of the things we're trying to go through and all the possessions we get, it's not going to last. So be willing to let some things go. Um, and I want them to know how much I love my son's mother. She's a wonderful person. I love my wife, their grandma. But my sons are my heroes. They are phenomenal young men, and I love them. And that's what I want them to remember. I hope that
Well,
helps.
I couldn't have closed out better. To be honest with you, I would have wanted to get a little closer to the 2 hour mark, but I think I got some power issues with my camera. But the point being is, I think I really do appreciate this conversation, Ray.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to get to learn more about you. I get to appreciate the opportunity to get to figure out, what it is that shaped Ray Letteer and the personality that the guy that I met back there in 2002, 2003 time frame. Um, and I do appreciate the opportunity to sit down and let me, without, because I didn't give you any questions up front, but
No,
just the opportunity to sit down and
just talk.
yeah, just talk and take any question I may be able to fire your way. So thank you again.
Thank
It
you.
was a pleasure and a privilege on my part. And someday when I get better at this, and number one, my power doesn't fail me on the camera, but number two, I get better at my interviewing school skills. I may have to swing back and see what life is like in
Love
retirement.
it.
But
Maybe you can get more issues, and we can talk about things of the day of what cybersecurity issues are. We can go down that path if you like.
absolutely. Well, thank you. And to the audience out there, I appreciate the opportunity to provide this to you. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions, don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. And thanks again to everybody. I'm going to go ahead and hit the stop button.
Thank you, guys.